All right, let's talk Dallas Cowboys. I'm Nick, and this is our daily Cowboys channel. Yesterday was supposed to be a slow news day, guys. Didn't quite happen as it rarely does in Dallas, and we'll get to all that drama a little bit later. But there is a preseason game tonight. Last chance for a lot of these fringe roster guys to state their case, whether with the Cowboys or somebody else. Exciting game to watch. A lot of interesting developments that could happen come out of it, of course. But let's get started with a little stat of the day action to get us going today. So I'm going to pull this up here. This is courtesy of Spot Track, which is a great account to follow, a great website. They just do a lot of contract details and some data and things like that. I know there's a lot of you out there that may not be the biggest data fans, and this isn't like analytics and predictive modeling. This is just, hey, here's what team salary cap, here's how much they're over, under the cap, dead money, guaranteed money, all that kind of stuff. They pull in a bunch of different information. They just basically report information that isn't widely available. So I appreciate sites like Spot Track, and overthecap.com is another good one. You guys should go check them out if you're interested. But their account posted the projected 2025 NFL regular season win totals based on DraftKings Sportsbook odds. You've got Baltimore and Buffalo at the top of the list with 12, Kansas City, Philadelphia with 11 each, and then Cincinnati, Denver, Detroit, Green Bay, the Chargers, Rams, 49ers, Buccaneers, Washington with 10, and then Arizona, Houston, Minnesota, Pittsburgh with 9, and then Atlanta and Chicago, Dallas with 8, and it goes on from there, but I stopped at Dallas, of course, with 8 wins. All right, I think in terms of just looking at where they have Dallas, I think that sounds about right to me. I've said this going back weeks now, that Dallas, if everything goes really wrong, kind of like things I went really wrong last year with injuries, I think 6 to 7 wins makes sense, right? Tough schedule, 6-11 seems very realistic if things go bad. Now, if things go well, I'm looking at like more of that 10-win range, get into the playoffs, maybe win a playoff game or two, maybe go on a magical run, highly unlikely. But I think the middle point there is 8, 9, 9, and 8, right? Kind of in the thick of it, not in the playoffs, but maybe on the bubble most of the season. And when it come to shove, at the end of the season, you're a game or two out of it, right? But you're kind of in the thick of it. You're in the discussion. If you can go on a run, if you can make a big win or two, maybe you can get in. It just doesn't happen. To that regard, and I've said this already, it feels like the 2005 Cowboys. It feels like, 11, 12, 13, excuse me, where, right on the thick of it, right on the cusp, but just can't win enough of those games to get into the postseason. It is a tough schedule after all, but I do think 8 wins is sort of a decent point. That's what I've been saying a lot. I know some people are more negative, some people are more positive, but I think that's a good point in terms of setting the odds. And like odds makers, they're not perfect, but they generally have a pretty good idea. When I looked on the list, I thought there was a couple things that just jumped out to me that I thought was interesting. They're betting big on that the Lions will regress, right? The Lions are set at 10 wins for regular season win totals. Remember, they won, 15 last year? And they still have pretty much all their players. They just lost a lot of quality coaches. So, I mean, there's a bet big thing going on right now with the Lions that they're not going to be nearly as good. I thought that was very interesting. They have Philadelphia at 11 wins, which feels a little low, but I think that's just a function of the NFC and the division, right? You have Washington projected at 10 wins, which is a 2-win drop off from last year, which feels right. I don't know how many wins Washington's going to have, but what they did last year was sort of they had so many miracle wins and last second victories. I mean, maybe they'll repeat it, who knows, but the odds of, going 12 wins again, the way they kept winning all those games is unlikely. But you have Philly there with 11. I think Pittsburgh Steelers with Aaron Rodgers only at 9. That's interesting from Pittsburgh's perspective. They may go all in for 2025 and end up in the exact same spot. I thought Green Bay with 10. I think that feels about right. Looking here at the list, Tampa Bay with 10, that feels low, to be honest with you. I'm sorry, that feels high. I feel like Tampa Bay, their best case scenario is 10-7 and win the division again, right? That's sort of what we're going to get from Tampa. I feel like that's an opportunity to be a little high there for the sports book. But otherwise, most of these seem about right. I think Denver's a little high. But again, I can understand why they came to that number. They made the playoffs last year. It's hard to bury them too much. So the numbers here all generally seem to make sense. A little disagreement here and there, but I agree with that 8 for Dallas. I think that seems like a good point there to predict. All right, this next report here was something that popped up on the feed yesterday from DLLS Cowboys. A Dallas Cowboys source tells Clarence Hill Jr. the team is not interested in acquiring Washington Commanders running back Brian Robinson. So obviously the Cowboys have a couple of veterans already on their roster, but I think this is a big bet on Jaden Blue, and I think that's what we've seen this entire preseason and offseason and training camp. Because here's the thing that's so interesting about Jaden Blue is that he has not played a snap in the preseason. He's missed a large portion of training camp due to injury, right? He had an okay mini camp cycle, an OTA cycle, right? Schottenheimer said, listen, the young guys, Maffa and Blue, little slower to pick up the schemes than they would have originally liked, but they're full speed ahead now. Had a really good run there in training camp and then got hurt. But despite all of those potential concerns and work the Cowboys set at the running back position, Right now, the Cowboys say, we don't want any veterans. We like where we are. And I remember at the beginning of training camp, they had Jaden Blue actually third on their depth chart ahead of Deuce Vaughn. It was one of the very few positions where a player, a rookie, was ahead of an established veteran. You look at, of course, their first and second round pick being great options to that. Blue, not a first or second round pick, obviously. So it clearly was an indication that they really liked Jaden Blue. They had him as an opportunistic guy to make a lot of attempts this preseason. But then he got hurt and banged up. And despite that, they're like, no, we're good with what he is, right? We've obviously looked at the running back position. And today it looks like Williams will be the running back one. But the fact that the Cowboys have been very clearly adamant that, like, we like where we are with Blue, despite not seeing any live game action and him being banged up for a lot of training camp. I think the Cowboys think they got a really good player. I said this yesterday. I think he may get more and more touches as the season progresses this fall, a la Bucky Irving with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Based on this report, I think they're betting a lot bigger on him than even I thought. I think he's a guy who's going to get 10, 15 touches, rushing and receiving, like week one. I think he's going to be a big-time contributor, and they're going to rely on him a lot. And it kind of makes sense, right? He's a guy that's relatively cheap, obviously, in terms of capital. If it doesn't work out, hey, look, he didn't lose anything, but you really do need to figure out the future of the running back position if you're the Dallas Cowboys, right? To be totally fair, you need to evaluate him as soon as possible. Is he a stud? Is he a guy who can be one of your top running backs or your top running back for the next 3, 4, 5 years? If so, get him the opportunities now. And he's clearly ready to do so based on the reporting we've seen. So this is clearly a great sign for Jaden Blue. Excited to see what he does tonight. Definitely a guy to keep an eye on. All right, next report here. This is courtesy of John Machota over The Athletic. Braun Schottenheimer to Cowboys players. Don't look at mock drafts. Don't get caught up in that. Well, hey, they might only keep 5 or 6 receivers and I'm the 7th guy right now. Why would you do that? We haven't made any decisions yet. Just go play. This is a really good point by Schottenheimer, and this is where one of those things where having a little bit younger coach, a newer coach, is important. And let me explain why. Because Schottenheimer is a little bit younger. He comes from a different era than, let's say, Mike McCarthy or even a Bill Parcells, back in 2003. He knows and understands the player dynamic a little bit better. A lot of these young guys, and I see it with the social media stuff I put on with our main channel when I break down and talk about these rookies and undrafted free agents across football. They're all over it, right? I've had undrafted free agents on certain teams repost and comment of an article or a video I put up talking about them. Like, what are you doing, man? Why are you on social media? Not a good place for you to be. But they are. And I guarantee you a lot of these guys are on the fringe of the roster and they see on social media, oh, I'm the number 7 receiver or whatever. Or they look up the mock draft that Schottenheimer's saying. Listen, don't do that. Go out and play football. Things will work out. We've seen this happen all the time in preseason where guys who are on the outside and suddenly have a monster game and they explode onto the practice squad or explode on the 53 and the rest can be history. It can happen very, very quickly. Show flashes. Give somebody a reason. Give the Cowboys a reason to keep you. Give somebody else a reason to bring you on. Don't worry about what's online. And the fact that Schottenheimer is mentioning that, I think is a great sign, right? In terms of what it will mean for Cowboys wins, losses this season in the future, look, this specific point right here, probably very little. But you talk about the ability to relate, connect, and communicate to players. There's one thing you never want to be as a coach, as a leader, is out of touch, right? Imagine if Schottenheimer had said, hey, listen, guys, don't read the papers, right? It's one of those things where if you look around as a player, like, what's a newspaper, right? Would you say, hey, listen, avoid the stuff on social media, avoid the mock drafts, go out there and go play. Again, it's that sort of authenticity and ability to connect with players. Really important. It's an underrated attribute. People talk about, well, you need to be a disciplinarian, you need to be a tough guy. You got to remember, Tom Landry, when he started his time with the Dallas Cowboys, coming out of World War II, right? That's who he was, right? He was a bomber in World War II before he went back to Texas, a pilot. When he came into the Cowboys in the early 60s, right, and was a coach in the Giants in the 50s, there was still a lot of people who either fought in wars, we're talking like Korea, we're talking World War II, or their parents or uncles did, so they understood that mentality. By the latter part of Landry's career, he couldn't connect as well because it had been so long since that stoic mindset of having that real world situation, real life stuff happening, that had been pushed aside, right? Jimmy Johnson came in, was a disciplinarian because the team was terrible. Right, they were so bad. 3-13 in '88 and 1-15 in '89. He could be a disciplinarian because everyone's like, look, we suck. We got to do something. Bill Parcells comes in, can be a disciplinarian. 3 straight years of 5-11. Same thing, right? But if you come in and you're just a hardcore disciplinarian after this is a team that won 7 games last year despite a lot of injuries and had 3 straight 12-win seasons prior to that, it becomes one of those things. If you're a player, like, why are you screaming at us? Why are you being, what's going on here? What are you doing, right? It breeds inauthentic, right? Players look for something to connect to. They look for a coach that understands the environment. I'm not saying be soft on players. I'm saying as a coach, you have to understand what the players are seeing, what they're going through, and based on reality, and you have to live in it, right? If you try and not live in reality, you're going to lose. That's why a lot of Belichick assistants lose. They take what happens in New England and say, oh, I can just transplant that somewhere else, but they don't understand wherever they're going isn't New England, right? You got to change and adapt to your reality. Sean Heimer's doing a great job of that with the Dallas Cowboys. All right, let's get into the big news of the day. A lot of stuff to break down here. This is from Nick Harris at Fort Worth Star Telegram. Great follow. Jerry Jones was on a interview with Michael Irvin on Michael Irvin's show, and he just kind of summarized some key points. Jones said he offered him, talking about Micah Parsons, of course, the most guaranteed money of any defensive player in NFL history, which confirmed a Star Telegram report from the August 3rd. So that appears to be confirmed that he, back in March, offered Micah Parsons more guaranteed money than any defensive player. He implies that he's prepared to tag him in 26 or 27. He said, we got basically 3 years to do this, which we've been saying for a long time. Explains that the agent, David Mulligeta, has other motives in the deal. Later said the agent told him to take the contract he negotiated with Parsons in March and, quote, stick it up our ass, unquote. All right, now this is obviously Jerry Jones' side of the story. So there's a big, caveat there. But the first bullet is confirmed by a Fort Worth Star Telegram report, so that's fair. And the second point, that is true. He can tag him and has in the past. We've seen this with Dak Prescott. In terms of Mulligeta with motives in this deal, yeah, I've said that before. It seems like David Mulligeta, the agent for Micah Parsons, has other things going here. And I don't know what it is, but it seems like he's got other sort of machinations involved. I don't know if it's directly with Parsons or he's trying to use this Parsons deal to help set up other things. I don't know exactly what it is. I can't read his mind, and I don't even know if that's 100% true, but I can kind of agree with Jerry Jones with what he's saying there based on what it looks like from the outside. In terms of if he told them to take the negotiations and stick it up our ass, at first when I heard that, I was like, I don't really know if that's the case. But then when you go into this next report here, and I just want you to focus on the Calvin Watkins comment right there. He said Parsons agent David Mulligeta had no comment to Sports Day DFW, but is aware of the Jones interview with Irvin. Up to the point of me recording this Monday, so we're talking morning of August 22nd. Right now, it's 5:40 Central Time right now. So we're at a point now where I haven't heard anything from David Mulligeta. Maybe by the time you guys see this, there will be. So we'll take that as sort of a ongoing development. But it's very clear at this point, just based on what's going on, that Mulligeta did something in negotiations, whether he said that verbatim or not, that probably wasn't the best practice. And now Jerry Jones is like, enough. And he's going very public with it. And I think the fact that Mulligeta didn't come out and deny, didn't come out and say, no, he's mischaracterizing it, publicly. I'm talking about not going through proxies. I'm saying, listen, putting out a statement and going on an interview. Right now, he'd be the number one sports podcast guest in the country by far, right? You make a lot of money showing up on a podcast or any sort of news event. And the fact that he isn't, say, look, I'm aware of it. I've got nothing to say. To me, that makes me think that Jerry Jones aired some private discussion there in his interview with Michael Irvin that was not untrue. Now, could Jerry Jones be embellishing? Could he be hyperbolic? Could he be misrepresenting? Absolutely. But on the face value, the facts appear to be behind Jerry Jones' side based on what he said. I will go back to the report here so that way we can put it back on the screen. Now, does this mean Jerry Jones is in the right here? Of course not. Doesn't mean, he's in the wrong here. Of course not. I think at this point, we've seen a weird situation. Remember, David Mulligeta is a controversial agent. He did the thing with Deshaun Watson. That was an absolute disaster for the Browns. He represented T. Higgins, and T. Higgins was holding out and not getting anything with Cincinnati before T. Higgins fired David Mulligeta. So this is a controversial agent who's known for these kind of tactics, for really pissing off a lot of ownership, to be totally honest, to be totally fair. Now, sometimes that's the right thing to do with your client. Now, sometimes it may be the wrong thing to do with your client, and maybe the Higgins thing turned out to be the wrong thing. We'll have to see what happens here. But it's very clear that, at least from Jones's perspective, and this has been confirmed by his comments and numerous reports at this point, that Mulligeta is the roadblock. He is the point, and that if you believe what Jones is saying, which, of course, big if, of course, that Mulligeta, unprofessional, not willing to work, I think that could be a big red flag for getting this deal done. But I want to take a step back and just evaluate here Jerry Jones's from a winning the argument from a persuasiveness sales perspective, because this is where Jerry Jones is absolutely genius. So the big two concerns and comments about Jerry Jones during this process is Why won't he call David Mulugheta? All he's got to do is pick up the phone and call, right? That's all you've been hearing, right? You need to call him. You need to call. You need to call. The other thing you've been hearing kind of second is that Jerry Jones doesn't want to deal with any, adversarial discussions. He doesn't want to have any tough calls. He doesn't want to, have to be called out on the carpet or anything like that. So what does Jerry Jones do, right? He goes on all of these podcasts. He goes on all these shows, right? He picks up the phone and he calls people, right? He calls into, I think, Fox News. I think I got a clip here from Fox News. There we go. We'll get to this in just a second right there. But he calls into Fox News. He called into Michael Irvin, right? He's meeting one-on-one with Stephen A. Smith reportedly for an interview that should be going live today, I think. So adversarial interviews, things like that. Stephen A. Smith makes his money making fun of Jerry Jones, essentially. Gets a bunch of his engagement through that. So we look at Jerry Jones here. Again, it's not the same thing. It's not apples to apples. But strictly from a persuasiveness perspective, the critics, right, with the Mulugheta camp wants is Jerry Jones just needs to call me. He just needs to call. So what does Jerry Jones do? He calls literally everybody else. And it makes it look like, just from a sales perspective, from a persuasion perspective, that, well, Jerry Jones is willing to call everybody, including people that make fun of him, like Stephen A. Smith. Maybe it's you, David Mulugheta. And I'm not saying that's true or not. I'm just saying from a strategy perspective, from Jerry Jones, it's really, really good. And that also leads me to my second point, and that the first step of persuasion is attention, right? You have to get attention on you in order to persuade people. And earlier on during camp, the Micah Parsons camp blew up the entire thing when they said, listen, I want to trade, right? And he got all the attention on him, blew up the media, right? Absolutely earth-shattering story. And then what does Jerry Jones do now a few weeks later? He's now going all over media, getting all the attention on him and on his side of the story, right? At the same time, the documentary comes out. So right now, there's all this attention on Jerry Jones, mixed to positive, I would say right now. There's still some negative, but overall, the net looks mixed to positive in terms of how it compares to David Mulugheta. Now, whether that's right, whether that's accurate, that remains to be seen. But from a sales perspective, from a negotiation perspective, in a matter of 24 hours, Jerry Jones has shifted the conversation and reframed this completely from Jerry Jones doesn't want to pay Micah Parsons. He just needs to call his agent to, wow, why is the agent being such a jerk? Jerry Jones is willing to talk to anybody and he offered him a lot of money. What's going on here with this agent? And then just completely reframe the situation and has put the Cowboys, I think, in a stronger negotiation perspective. We'll see what happens, of course, but I think from a sales persuasion perspective here, a strategy from Jerry Jones, this was really good. You can hate Jerry Jones, but you can respect the game that he's playing here. It's well done from his perspective. This next report is from Brandon Lohr. The Cowboys are trying to share one piece of the pie between Micah Parsons, Brandon Aubrey, Tyler Smith, Deron Bland, and others. When talking about citing the interview Jerry Jones did with Fox News. Again, this is really good persuasion in terms of setting and reframing the situation, because when you look at earlier this offseason, Micah Parsons, and he said this multiple times, I'm willing to take less money if it means I can have better players around me. And then Jerry Jones goes on TV and says, look, we got to share the pie with all these other great players. So now Micah Parsons' camp has to sit there and say, well, crap. Do we say Micah Parsons was lying? Do we say Micah Parsons was untruthful? Or, most people won't think that. Most people think Micah Parsons is a great competitor. Of course, that's the case. Or now, what is the reframe? That the agent is the problem. And this is what Jerry Jones has done so well this entire 24, 36-hour window, is he's made the agent the problem. He's brought all the attention on himself. He's sold his side of the story, right or wrong. It doesn't matter, guys. The truth in this case really doesn't even matter. He's completely reframed it and put the agent in the middle of it as the bad guy. Micah wants to play. Micah's a great player. Micah's willing to take less if he's going to be surrounded with good players. Who's the guy preventing it? David Mulugheta. Jerry Jones won't call him. Well, Jerry Jones will call anybody, right? Well, Jerry Jones needs to work with David Mulugheta. Mulugheta evidently was a jerk and disrespectful, right? There's, again, none of that's excusing Jerry Jones, of course, and there's blame to go around. But strictly from a strategy perspective, a PR perspective, this is why billionaires are billionaires, guys. This is next level kind of stuff from Jerry Jones. And look, love him or hate him, it's a pretty effective strategy. One final point I want to make on this topic before we get to the comments from yesterday. This is from Marcus Mosher, reposted the interview with Michael Irvin, and he said, Jerry keeps mentioning what happened with the Dak extension like it's a good thing, but he doesn't realize how much money ended up costing him. Not true. You're missing the point. Why is Jerry Jones mentioning the Dak Prescott extension, talking about what he did with Dak? That was considered an overpayment. That was considered such a huge, massive win for Dak Prescott. Why is he mentioning the Prescott deal? because what he's saying is, I'm going to overpay Parsons. I want to overpay Parsons. Again, it's the reframe. Remember when I overpaid Dak Prescott and you all criticized me? I'm trying to do the same thing here. That's what he's selling to the media. That's what he's getting out there. That I am trying to do what I did for Dak Prescott, where I gave him way too much money, way too friendly a contract when it was all said and done. That's what I want to do for Micah Parsons. Again, this is just a good reframe, and it puts the agent in a position to be, hold on here. Dak Prescott got a great deal, a fantastic deal, crushed it from his perspective. It was a losing deal for Dallas, and you're preventing that from happening, David Mulligeta? Why would you do that, right? And again, that's all he's trying to do. Whether that's true or not, the reframing here and the strategy from Jerry Jones, absolutely outstanding. All right, let's get to the comments from yesterday. Look, I mentioned this yesterday as well. We set up a membership on this channel. I'd appreciate anyone who's willing and able to join. It gets you priority comments. There'll be more perks to come in the future as well. But basically what it means, if you're a member and you get a little emblem on your name, if you're a member in the comment section, I will respond to every single member comment every single time. Get you guys your chance to kind of respond to the show and get some feedback, some back and forth. I can't guarantee I'll get to everyone's comments every single show, as some of you guys probably have noticed. But if you are a member, I will guarantee that I will get to your comment every single time you post. So just keep that in mind. Again, if you want to support the channel and make sure your comments always get shouted out, and there's a lot of great comments out there, make sure you become a member. Again, there's going to be a link in the description box below. Really appreciate anyone who's willing and able to do so. Got a lot of great commenters and viewers. You guys are outstanding. Let's jump into it. Billy Collects commented yesterday, yeah, that's what I've been saying. We don't play any starters besides maybe 2 to 3 guys talking about preseason performance, and they only play a quarter or two, so I don't know how anyone could take much from this preseason. I'm not even saying they'll be great or anything this season, but you wouldn't be able to tell that being there's no starters out there. Yeah, it's one of those things. Different teams, we talk about this a lot, different teams have different strategies for the preseason, and the Cowboys' strategy has been evaluate Joe Milton on offense and throwing a lot of young guys on defense. Really, to be totally honest, I think they're evaluating the cornerback position for depth. They're evaluating Zion Childress, and they're trying to develop young linebackers and young players like Shamar James, and probably evaluating defensive tackle as well. So they are doing some evaluation, but it's at critical weak points like cornerback depth because of injuries, defensive tackle because of poor performance, and backup quarterback. That's their priority, and that's become clear. Good comment. I agree. David Dobbins 5887 commented, I don't judge a team by Super Bowl wins. I judge it by postseason success. I also believe that would be a massive mistake if Mingo, Holden, Maffa, and Childress don't make this team. We'll see if culture means anything. To me, it's an interesting thing how different people frame this, right? What is more important? Is it more important to have a winning season? Is it more important to have net wins? Is it more important to have Super Bowls? Is it more important to be a deep postseason kind of guy, even though if you don't win titles? It's sort of, who would you rather be? Would you rather be the Buffalo Bills, who win a lot of games and always lose in big moments in the postseason? Would you rather be the Bengals, who go on one magical run but don't capture a title? Would you rather be the Rams, who've captured one title? Right, it's one of those things. Right? Would you rather be the Eagles, right? They've captured 2 titles over the past decade, but they've had some really disappointing seasons, right, mixed in there. I believe 2000 and I forget. I know 2020 they were like 4-11-1, right? And they had a couple. I think they went 7-9 the first year under Carson Wentz in 2016. So they've had some. I think the year after the Super Bowl they went like 9-7, and they got knocked out of the playoffs in the first round in 19. So and 21 knocked out first round. So again, they've had a few runs on it. 22 was the 2023 was a famous collapse by Philadelphia in the regular season, and then getting blown out in the postseason first round. And I'm just bringing that up as an example. It's like, well, what's the barometer of success? To me, it's Super Bowl wins. Why? To me, it's wins during the regular season as a fan, just to have a good time, right? No one likes to go 2-15 or anything. But if you're looking at a franchise success, it's Super Bowl wins. Or at the very least, Super Bowl appearances. Now, Dallas, of course, has been lacking in that department. But if you're a franchise and you're looking to win titles, winning titles is what matters. You'll want wins. That's step one, because that leads you to titles. So to me, I always look at regular season wins as sort of the lower level tier, and the real tier is Super Bowl championships. But if you're looking for just playoff wins and just making it to an arbitrary round, well, I would make it a divisional round or the conference championship round. And if we're Washington and we give up 55 points and lose, that's okay. That's not what football's about to me. That's just my personal opinion. Like, you want to win games to have fun as a fan during the regular season, but really when rubber meets the road, it's about championships. It's about titles, right? To me, that's what matters, and that's what we should grade on. All right. This was, let's see here. William Morrison, 1889, said, you do understand that the Kansas City Chiefs were the Dallas Texans until 1969, the first year of the Cowboys. The Cowboys Chad 5X778 with a good fact check. First 2 really good fact checks. And the first year of the Cowboys was 1960. The original Dallas Texans folded in 1952. The AFL Dallas Texans started in 1959, played 1960 to 63 in Dallas, and moved to KC in 1963 and rebranded as the Chiefs. That all sounds 100% correct to me. Good fact check from Cowboys Chad 5x778. Fact check on me. So I was wrong on something, and I'll take my just desserts for being incorrect. The greatest or the great best one, how you pronounce that? Your handle said, once again, you're wrong about cutting Mozzie. He would cost them money against the cap if you cut him. He wouldn't free up money. Stop pushing these false narratives, man. All right, so that is actually fair. I double checked, and because of the relatively new CBA, a lot of these contracts are fully guaranteed. So the cutting him would not save a lot of dollars for the Dallas Cowboys. But here's the other point I would make: he is taking a roster spot. So if you're paying him $4 million per year, $4 or $5 million, I get it, it's not a lot necessarily. But if he's playing up to the value of like a 1 million player, that cost differential is hurting your team. So in terms of taking up a roster spot, a potential key roster spot, and only providing, whatever his level of performance is worth of value, that is a critical deficit where you could avoid that, avoid falling the sunk cost fallacy and saying, hey, we can't save money. If there's an opportunity to replace him with someone better, you do that, right? And there's also the locker room issue to take into effect. If everyone sees Mozzie Smith isn't playing well and you keep him on the roster, it could send a bad message to the culture. Now, I'm not saying they should cut Mozzie Smith. I think he hasn't played well this preseason. I think the second game was a little bit better than the first, but I do think the reality is he hasn't lived up to the first round expectations, not even close. But thank you for the fact check. I really appreciate it. If I get things wrong, please call me out. I want to be correct more than anything else. Steven Vanover, really good commenter, regular commenter. There is a relay race. One team puts their entire focus on winning by fielding the four best athletes who run hard from the sound of the gun. The other team uses their four worst players looking to find the best one to promote to the top, who then stop and change shoes every single time in search of the best fit later in the year. Welcome to a Dallas Cowboys preseason game. Yeah, exactly. It's one of these, it's a pretty good analogy there. It's one of those things is, do you really care about winning or not? I would use a little bit another one. It's sort of like the qualifying trials for like Olympics or something like that. Those preliminary heats. I remember like Michael Phelps, he wouldn't necessarily win all the preliminary heats. He would certainly make sure to qualify, and a lot of times he would. But his goal was to set him up to make sure, number one, he qualified, but number two, get the habits, get the control, get the process ready to win for the medal race, right? So it is one of those things. The goal isn't necessarily to win the qualifying rounds. You just need to qualify. You need to evaluate your performance and qualify. The Dallas Cowboys right now, there is no qualification aspect to the preseason. They don't need to win. It's not worth anything. So why are you trying to? And it's a fair point to make. Let's see here. Tanner Carr 92. Your videos surpass so many other Cowboys content creators. You're very in-depth and thoughtful, and I appreciate it. Well, I appreciate you, Tanner Carr 92. I appreciate all you commenters. You guys are awesome. XDucky5301 said, what do you think the record will be this year, and love the content? Look, I've said 8-9. I think I'm going with that. I mean, I know it's kind of easy because that's what Sportsbook said, but I think that's what I've been kind of feeling as too. I mean, it's just one of those things. It's a tough schedule, and I think it'll be a slow start to the season, and they'll pick up some juice. I feel like this team's going to be like 7-7-ish with a few games to go, the final 3 games, and then we'll see what happens down the stretch. I mean, they could be 7-7, and then 7-7, 6-7, something like that. I think 6-7 after 13 makes sense, and maybe they could run the table and surprise and get in, win 3 or 4 and sneak in, or maybe they just win, lose a couple games down the stretch and go 8-9. Right? There's a realistic chance of that happening. That's kind of my base case. I feel like they're kind of always in the thick of it, but outside looking in and just missed the playoffs. Elam and Childress, please, from Matthew Morales, 8966. Don't know exactly what you're referring to there. Adam the Wizard commented, do you think the Matt Eberflus defense is real, even though this is our defense third defensive coordinator in like 4 to 5 years? Well, I mean, I think he's proven to be effective as a defensive coach right now. How effective will he be with Dallas? We'll have to see. Mike Zimmer was an effective defensive coach, and last year was not very good. Dan Quinn was an effective defensive coach, and his tenure was pretty good with Dallas, although in big games, certainly in 2023, he was not very good. One of the dirtiest secrets of Dan Quinn, and I think he's a turnaround artist, one of the best in football, maybe the best at football, actually, with what he did with the Cowboys defense and now with Washington. But his big game defensive performance, his strategy just doesn't work. You talk about blowing the lead to Tom Brady twice in Super Bowls. If we go back to the Seattle Seahawks time frame, we look at the fact that he gave up 48 points to Green Bay, 55 to Philly last year in the NFC Championship game, right? They still gave up 31 points to Detroit, even though, they got a bunch of takeaways and turnovers, so their offense and Jane Daniels helped carry the day. The notion that Dan Quinn is this great big game defensive coordinator is not true. He's a great turnaround artist. I think the best at football, but I don't think he's the best big game defensive coordinator. But back to your question here at hand. Look, I think the proof will have to be in the pudding. I think what he has done and his staff is clearly done is gotten the linebacker position to play a lot better, at least so far during camp in the preseason. We'll have to see when the regular season comes, of course. But once Overshown is healthy, and again, looking forward to the future, and I've said this a few times already, this 2026-27 Cowboys team is going to have a top 8 linebacker core in the National Football League. And I think that's the first time you can say that since maybe 2018, maybe even before. So I really like what we're seeing here with Matt Eberflus at the linebacker position, because that was a clear weakness going back to 2023, right? Certainly after the Van Der Esch injury, and it's never been a real strength for a very long time. So I'm excited to see what he's doing there. I think this defense, you're going to go through ups and downs. It's clear they're trying to create big plays, and there's going to be some times they're going to get gashed. There's going to be some times where they have some big issues, but I think the focus on takeaways and turnovers and things like that, that's the right approach. They don't have the talent to just line up and beat people. They're going to have to focus on takeaways. So I think Eberflus is doing a lot of the right things, and I like what he's doing with the linebacker core. It's just, again, the Cowboys have some flaws on defense. It's going to take a few years. And again, sometimes it doesn't work out, but I do think so far he's been a great hire. I love what he's doing up to this point. We'll have to see what he does during the regular season, of course. All right, there's one more comment from Go-Go 8352 from a couple days ago. He commented, I agree with the evaluations of 1 versus 2s or 3s. It's not doing anything in terms of preseason, right? Having your first string against a team's third string, like the Bears against the Bills, it's not doesn't help anybody. But don't you think getting the timing down in live action is a benefit? That is a great question, and that's a great point to make. Here's my counter argument, is that you're paying CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott, right? Terrence Steele, right? You're going to pay Tyler Smith. You've got, you paid Ferguson, you traded for Pickens, right? You got all these players, you extended Turpin this offseason. You got all these players you already put a lot of money and effort behind. If you have to expect these guys to go more than practice reps, more than offseason reps, who have played a lot of football to get ready for the regular season, then to me, that's a problem. Right? I like the old Tom Moore quote. I say this all the time. When he talked about when he was with the Indianapolis Colts as an offensive coordinator, they always practice only with Peyton Manning. They never let the backups take reps because they said, listen, if 18 goes down, we're screwed, and we're not going to practice screwed. If you need Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb to get live preseason reps together, you're screwed, right? You just are, right? If you sit there and say, man, they got to play 30 snaps. That's why I look at teams like the Bengals, where I'm like, man, they're playing Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow in the preseason. That makes me a little nervous. Now, they're fantastic players, but it makes me nervous for the Bengals as a whole. It's like, man, if you need to play them during the preseason, that's not a good sign, right? Because championship caliber players, teams that are really great at a high level, communicate, teams that do well, they don't need preseason. We've proven that time and time and time again. It doesn't mean the preseason will hurt you, but if you need it, that's a problem. I think the Cowboys are saying, listen, we don't need it, but we're not going to play them. That's what they're saying. Again, whether they're right or wrong, we'll see this upcoming regular season. But I think that timing versus live action, when you've got these veterans that have played so much football together, do you really need more live action? I don't think so. In some ways, again, I think it can hurt depending on the situation. You want live action when it's a game plan, when you have a strategy, when you have real concepts that you're going to utilize to create those winning opportunities. You're not going to get those in the preseason. On top of it, you may also get inferior competition, which doesn't help anybody. All right, good comment, though. I really appreciate it. All right. Look, we got the final preseason game tonight. Obviously, Jaden Blue making a performance. I'm really excited to see what he says. Film off Trayshawn Holden, Childress. I mean, there's a lot of guys here to keep an eye on in terms of guys making the team. Hopefully, Shamar James continues to get better if he plays. I think he's a stud. Jay Toya, big defensive tackle, young guy inside. I think Perry and Winfrey is probably going to play too. Mozzie Smith will probably play. So we'll get our final chance there to see what happens with the Dallas Cowboys at that position. Some of these corners, all right, a lot of eyes on them as well. Outside corners, see what they do there. A lot of guys to watch. And, of course, Joe Milton. Can he take a step back from step forward, I should say. I don't know how much further he can take a step back based on 2 rather disappointing preseason performances. But, again, final chance to evaluate these guys. Excited to see how they play. Let us know in the comment section below who you're excited to see play. Let's check it out. We'll reconvene tomorrow after the performance to break down who did well and who didn't. But until then, I'm Nick, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection.